Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Being Bolder. I'm Rustin Hamilton with Bronwyn Weaver. And guess what? We are producing a video for the Boulder magazine. And we want to tell you a little bit about that. And we are in the production business here. So we actually know a little bit about what we're talking about. And we're going to get into it right after this. Stay tuned. All right, we are back. Again, I'm Rustin Hamilton with Bronwyn Weaver. This is Being Bolder. And this has been a busy week, Bronwyn. There's been a lot going on when it comes to Boulder Magazine. And today we're going to get into one of a project that's probably turned into a bigger thing than we normally thought it would, which is creating a video for the publication to tell people what it is and et cetera, et cetera. But there's been a few other things happening this week. So maybe get us up to speed on where we are with like our second issue of Boulder.
Well, hello there, Rustin. And I'll just say that maybe even a better title for this podcast is Do As I Say, Not As I Do.
Yeah.
Because we're in
Yeah.
the business of helping companies do videos to tell their story. But it has really been interesting to try to tell our own story. And we got a lot of stuff to say. I mean, it is so amazing right here. And for those of you who are just listening, I'm holding up Boulder Magazine. This is issue number 2.
Yep.
And we'll talk, maybe just mention briefly. I just said it. It's issue number 2. This is a magazine that has been designed right from its very beginning to come out monthly. But the first issue came out really early this summer because we knew we needed a lot of lead time to show people what the magazine was going to be all about, to really, frankly, to even see it for ourselves. And now we've produced the second issue, and we are starting, this machine is starting to rev up because it's a every month magazine. And so now that the first one just came out and the second one just came out, the third one is already in countdown to go to the printer, and this is going to turn into our monthly routine. And Boulder Magazine, just for those of you maybe new that are just jumping into this podcast, Boulder, spelled Bolder, Boulder Magazine is a magazine about where things come from and why we care so much about it. It is lovingly produced by a pretty big team of people that have a variety of experience. We have industry people, we have creative professionals, and we've got great writers. And one thing that holds us all together, that binds us together, is our love of teaching and our love of where things come from, being outside, being connected to nature, being connected to our natural resources. You can go to bouldermagazine.com to subscribe or to learn more about us. But the second issue, I'm so proud of it. It is, we set the bar pretty high and got a lot of great feedback from the first issue, incorporated some of that feedback, trying to make it the magazine as interactive as possible. The second issue, I'm just really proud to say, met that bar. I think is even a little higher. And the next issue that we're working on is, it's really pretty cool. People have said to us time and time again, how can you fill 80 pages every month and our
I thought
reporters
that when
don't
we
have.
first got it started, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
And instead it's like, no, Tina and I were just going back and forth. Tina is our managing editor. She's also our learning curator. She brings 15 years worth of experience teaching. And she just told me, "Hey, we're 84 pages. There's something we've got to cut." So we
Just don't
limiting
cut my
ourselves.
story. I don't
I
care
know.
what you cut. You cut my story, you're gonna be doing this podcast by yourself
Oh,
from now on,
listen to
so
you. Well,
no.
but honestly, I mean, it's funny. We all feel that way about
Well, I'm
everything we're
sure.
writing.
Yeah.
So we've talked about on this podcast before, we've talked about how it's been a year in the making. And in fact, as we have massaged and manipulated all of this to figure out what we need to do, the way we need to do it, how it'll have the biggest impact, uh, it's a big story to tell. Not only like the actual producing of the first issue or the second issue or what we're working on now for subsequent issues, but just I don't know, there's three things about our company that I just want to share because this is hard for us to capture for ourselves. This, if we were our own client, we would be stepping back and saying, okay, what are the basics about how you do things? And as a company, we would say there's three things that we think is really important as a company. One, that we're a trusted resource. So we really want to, and again, I'm kind of jumping back to creating this video that tells our story. So being a trusted resource is really important to us. We want to build that trust through reading our magazine. We want to be that. There's a lot of, I don't want to use the word misinformation because that's a triggering kind of word out there, but there's a lot of contradictory information about the abundance of all of our natural resources. Because again, that's how we see it. We see it as there's an abundance of natural resources. There's so many things for us to be grateful about with our natural resources. So, how do we convey that and build trust that we know what we're talking about? The second thing is that we want to use our creative genius. And that isn't braggadocious. I mean, that's us like leaning into our gifts of how can we be creative about talking about these issues in a way that's going to be engaging and help spark curiosity and captivate people so that they want to learn more. So let's like we want to show off or lean into what we think is really being creative and our gifts. And finally, the third thing is that we as a company and us as a team of people, we like taking courageous risks. It's kind of a thing that we all do, right? We're a
Oh,
small
yeah.
company. We're doing a magazine that's in print that doesn't even have a digital form. We've got online bonus content, but our magazine is not. We don't have a digital magazine out there, and
Right.
that a lot of people would say, "Gosh, that's a little bit courageous. That's taking a risk." And so those three things, being a trusted resource, being using our creative genius where we can, and or maybe better said, our creative gifts. And then the third thing is having that courageous spirit. So all of that is what we want to showcase in a video. And honestly, for the last month or 6 weeks, we've been trying to fit in work on doing this, and it's been a challenge. Just like it's now, if we were doing it for a client, we would just like, no problem. We got this. But doing it for ourselves is,
It
I don't
feels
know,
like the
Rustin.
hardest project that we've had in
Yeah,
at least video production project that we've had in a long time.
I
And,
know. So
I don't know whether how much we wanna get into this, but the umbrella company to Boulder Magazine is Q4 Impact Group. Right. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because when we talk about all the people that work on the publication, they come from most, not all, come from Q4. And it's a great thing because all of a sudden and we have the writers, we have or some of the writers, we have the illustrators, we have
Yeah,
graphics experts, we have and in this case we have film production people who are
yeah.
used to creating this kind of stuff all the
Even the
time.
developers that are helping make us have a real
Yeah.
great website to back it all up. Yeah,
Yep. We have our own coders, everything. So we're kind of set up,
yeah.
and that's a great thing. We're at an advantage of being able to start this kind of publication because of that. But it's interesting because a lot of times what you specialize in when you try to do it for yourself just has trouble getting legs. And I'm going to go back. This is kind of a funny thing that we used to talk about in the farming community, but growing up. So my father had built livestock trailers for a living. That was what he did. He was known for it. He was great at it. It was all good, right? But who had the ugliest, most incompetent livestock trailer in the county? Probably. It was the Hamiltons. It was the Carl Hamilton family. We never got around to building one for ourselves, right? And I think we probably started one a couple times. It just went nowhere. And
But,
so
that's
I
the
feel like
old
that's where we are with this, all right?
I
That's what
know,
it feels like.
true. I grew up with, as you learn a little bit more about me, you'll learn that my, um some of the things I grew up with are kind of out of time. Maybe, that I grew up with like almost ancient type fairy tales. And one of those old, maybe it was Grimm's fairy tale, or Grimm's fairy tales, was about the shoemaker's sons that had no shoes. And so anyway, I think this is sort of I don't know, 'twas ever thus. I mean, this is sort of an old story that when you do it for other people, it can be easy, but when you try to do it for yourself, it's a challenge. So tell, because Rustin is our executive producer, and so your role, if we were, let's just talk about it. Like if we were doing this for a client, because maybe this will help us step back from it, and maybe we can actually
We
do
could
two things at once
start
here. We can
over
like
and
figure
try
this out.
again.
So I mentioned these kind of ethereal things that we want to describe with our video. We also want people to see this as a cool thing. You know, you may not have people that we are sending the magazine to, they may not even be getting any other publication in their home that is designed for the whole family. In fact, one of our colleagues, early days, volunteered the fact that they had just signed up for a book of the month club for their 4 or 5-year-old, and that every month he gets a new book. And that was part of, again, those were all of those inputs into what we're doing. But other than getting a book in the mail that you would read together as a family, like if you had a bunch of little kids, this is a magazine that if you're a 20 something or a 30 something or a fourth grader, um, you're going to get something out of it. You're going to learn something. You're going to smile. It's going to have something interesting in it. And um, so in a video that people have, well, it's not like we're setting people in front of a video and making them watch it. We know that in the first couple of seconds of this video, it's got to be interesting enough so they hang on. But we also know that people get bored really easily. And so even though we feel like we have a lot to say, we have like, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds to capture somebody's attention, then to give them some real information and then move on. So it's like, what are you thinking, Rustin? This is going to be like a minute and a half or a 3-minute video? It's 3 minutes even seems
Well,
like a lot.
yeah, when we timed it out, it was coming up, I think, to around 3 minutes. Yeah. So, anyway, I'm sorry, I'm having to think back a little bit.
Yeah, but because
What's interesting about this project, I don't know how forthcoming you want to be right now.
I don't, we
But
could
we
ask
said
people
we
to
were gonna
call
do
in and
this.
help us with
We
this. Yeah.
said we were gonna do this when we started this podcast.
Yes, that's
So,
right.
But when you're doing video work, and we again, we do a lot of it, and we've done everything from some fairly complicated documentaries
Yeah.
to the very corporate stuff, TV commercials, you name it, right? And so, and we really enjoy what we do, and we feel like we're pretty darn good at it. All right, so I'll
Yeah.
just say that. But this is one of those things where Bronwyn, when we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do,
Oh, good.
says,
Just the way you said my name, everybody's like, "Okay, what is he gonna
so
say?"
so you sent over this link to this video. I don't even know if we
Yeah.
want to mention the other company that did it. I had no problem mentioning them, but I'll let you decide that. Um, and you really liked this video, and I liked it too.
It was
So
about
let me
another
just
publication. We could say that.
right.
It's not a publication that competes with us or anything. It was
No,
just this really cool publication, and I love the way they were telling their story.
right, right. And so good video. Maybe in my mind it was a little precious, but I mean it was still
Okay,
really
yeah.
good and very earthy.
Yes,
Okay.
because 'cause I'm kind of the hippie, and, if you don't know that about me, I'm a right-wing hippie, and that's just who I am. So, go ahead, finish your story.
So so we're trying to, like, match the style a little bit, and that may be the first thing that we did wrong, but, because as soon as we, like, started doing that, with kind of this, like, low slung, chill kind of, voiceover, I wrote the script and you did the voicing for it, which totally makes sense. This was your brainchild. I mean, the magazine. And, then it was moving too slow.
Yeah.
And so, and then you didn't like the voiceover, and which I get, and I actually didn't disagree with you on any of these kinds of things.
And just to interject for a
Yeah.
second, one of the things we have if you were in my office right now, actually, if you were in anywhere in the barn, which is kind of our central headquarters for our company and the magazine, you would see written down in lots of places, "Don't be boring. Don't be boring." And that video was slightly going towards boring. That
I
was what I was
I
afraid
do
of.
not necessarily totally agree with that, and I think part of the problem was that you're looking at yourself
I guess. I don't know.
during
It's
this, and
just like,
nobody likes to look at themselves or hear themselves unless they're just really a politician. They generally do, but
that's true.
um, so anyway, bottom line is this: we kind of felt like we needed to up the game a little bit, and we needed more B-roll. And if you don't know what B-roll is basically the footage that is used in a video while you're hearing something else. So, like if you have interview footage but you're seeing something else. Like if we're interviewing Bronwyn, but we're seeing her walk around with her husband or whatever as she's talking, that is B-roll, that footage. All right, so you see it every day in the news and
It's like
online and everything.
filler. It's like really
Yeah,
it's interesting filler
yeah,
so that you're not just seeing somebody talk.
right. So we had to get more of that, and
Yes.
so Graham Smith is our outstanding shooter and editor, and
He's amazing. He's also
we
what makes this podcast come to you. So, anyway, shout
Yeah,
out to
yeah,
Graham. He's
yeah,
awesome.
he does the what little hopefully what little editing is required on this. So, but we love Graham, and so he was down at the farm yesterday shooting and getting more footage, and you can talk about what he was able to get while he was down there because I think it was pretty cool.
Maybe that's the thing, Rustin, is that we know what to do, and it's a lot easier to tell somebody to do something than to actually do it yourself. So we know that those first 10, 15 seconds are so important. And we were agonizing over, like, what should that be? Should it be like walking into the barn? Should it be sitting down and opening up the magazine? Like, should it be all of us working on the magazine? And it's so we filmed a couple of things, and you will be able to see this video because I think that's part of it too, is that we've got to just like produce a video and plan on maybe producing another one and then another one because we want to tell our stories to a couple. Here's another thing that we would tell a client that is hard to ingest ourselves. And that is that when you're doing a video, when you're trying to tell your story, you have to think about who your audience is. And with the magazine, We've got a couple of different audiences, and you get into trouble when you're trying to be everything to everybody. If it it's better, and we would tell a client this, we would say, "Hey, if you've got 3 distinct audiences, plan on doing 3 different videos. You might use some of the same footage in each one, but be mindful." So, if you think about our audience, we have people that have little kids at home, whether they're grandchildren or they're their own children or they're the neighbors or your nephews or nieces. There's that family that we know the magazine will be fun. There's also all the people that are in the natural resource business from whatever angle. Maybe they are people that produce crushed rock. Maybe they're mining companies. Maybe they're companies that manufacture equipment that's used. There's a whole bunch of people that make their living in this world of natural resources, and their story is not being told by anybody. At least that's part of the premise of the magazine. We want to tell those stories because there's so many fun things to share. And then there are the people that love being outdoors and being in nature. And they also, I was just having coffee with a friend of mine who I just love dearly, and she can't go anywhere without collecting rocks. Now, she's not a little kid, she's my age, and she loves collecting rocks and is hungry to learn more about geology and where things come from. So you can see just by that description, if I know I only have 30 seconds with any of those 3 people, what that introduction to the video will look very different. So, I think that's part of what's kind of like angsty about getting it. But yesterday was awesome. We had a wonderful day at the farm, and Graham had a couple of different things in mind for creating footage to include. Also, it was so cool. Um, both Bob Archibald, who's my husband and my partner in life, and he is an expert in mining and underground aggregate mining and frac sand. I mean, he's got a lot of specialties that he's developed in his professional career. But maybe what he is perhaps most passionate about right now is the magazine. And when they were printing the cover of the magazine, he was on deck to go to the printers and be able to actually see what that production looked like, how they even use a fine grind silica that they put in the coating that we have of the magazine. He was just over the moon at being able to do that. And he took footage of what that looked like. And I know Graham will be using um, that footage from Bob. So we'll have, I think, with yesterday's shoot and with the printing and the production, I think Graham may have even been out into our distribution center where we were actually packaging up magazines, printing out printing or mailing labels and taping up boxes to go. So um, I don't know, Rustin. I think we're pretty close. What do you think?
I think, well, I hope we are, and I'm sure we are. I think part of the problem is that it's easy to overthink this stuff
Oh,
a lot of
you
times
think?
when
Yeah.
yeah. I'm kind of in the Clint Eastwood camp of people don't know what they don't see, right? And so, that's why I think sometimes, for instance, if I'm doing a couple of takes, like if I'm recording someone doing dialogue or whatever, and there's a when we get like 2 or 3 good takes and so forth. Is it possible to get better? Yeah, it's possible to get better probably. But will the people on the other end of this know that that there were other possibilities that were out there, or that we did it 10 times
Well,
and
that's
one of them
true.
might have
So
been
true.
just a little bit better? I'm not expressing this the way that this is not coming across the way I meant it to come across. But it's just one of those things where it's just easy to overthink some things. And
Okay,
so when
I
you get it
agree.
and when you get it right and
Yeah.
you recognize it, sometimes you can do it too many times and get it to where you think it's right for you when it may not be right for the project. and therefore,
It's finding that
um,
sweet spot.
it's finding the
It's
sweet spot, and
yeah.
you have to keep in mind what the person on the other end of this is thinking. So, for instance, today's podcast, could it be better? Possibly, but our audience will never know. They'll just know
Okay, that's
they
a
just know
perfect
what
way
they're
to end
seeing.
this podcast.
You just know what they're
Actually,
seeing. The
I
what? Go ahead.
what I just wanna I wanna let people know that are listening. As
Yeah,
soon as this video is done, we will let you know so that you can take a look at it and give us feedback, because that's probably the best way for it to improve. We've told you we're probably gonna be doing that over and over and over again as we figure out how to tell our story to the different audiences that we need to tell our story to. And honestly, those of you that are listening, that are taking the time to learn more about our magazine and that feel like you're on the ground floor of creating this community of people that care where things come from, that not only care about it, but want the next generation to care about it as
right.
well. We appreciate you so much. Please go to bouldermagazine.com. That's BOLDER magazine.com. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Please like this podcast, uh, share it, please. We really want to get the word out about our magazine. And whether you're homeschooling or your kids go to public school, or maybe it's just something that you want to know more about where those resources come from yourself, please be a part of our community. We appreciate you so much.
Well, yeah, and you know what? Thank you for letting us into your lives a little bit, and for being willing to sit there and listen to a few things about our lives, because we do have fun doing this, and we want to. I guess we kind of want to share that with everyone, along with our overall mission, which Bronwyn has talked about today. So we're excited about all of that, and we love bantering back and forth. So it's all good, and the video will turn out great. I'm convinced of it, or I will be. So have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.